This remarkable woman in front of me climbed and conquered Mount Everest. Kayla Perez, it's good to see you again. How are you?
So good to see you. I am doing absolutely phenomenal.
Last time, first time and last time we met, you were on Las Vegas Now, the lifestyle show we have here on 8 News Now. It airs at 3 o'clock. And we had you on to talk about conquering Mount Everest and facing your fears and your whole journey. And we tried to do it in 3 minutes, and you can't tell that story in 3 minutes. So I said, we have to get you back on where you can go long form and just talk about your this whole experience that you went through. So thank you again for joining us.
Yes, yes, thank you. It's such an honor and pleasure.
Where do you get the inspiration, or when did that light bulb go off and say, hey, I'm going to go climb Mount Everest?
Yes, funny story, I actually am afraid of heights, and most people would never think of that, being a climber, rock climber, mountaineer. And during COVID 2020, when we all had time, I decided to just tackle my fears and go for it and see how far I can get in, how high I can get as well. So I started rock climbing. I went to a rock climbing gym and just started, basic indoor rock climbing. Then I signed up for a intro to mountaineering, and that consisted of just basic knowledge on glacier travel. You do self arrest, how to walk in crampons, and that was Mount Shasta. So after that, I actually started loving the challenge, and I wanted to start going higher and see how my body would react at different altitudes, different heights. So not only am I conquering my fears, I'm now discovering all these other weaknesses, because in the mountains, you figure out who you really are and what your true weaknesses are, how you react to stress in life. And as I was going through South America and later Himalayas, I started to see how my body would react at altitude, and just developing major illnesses like pulmonary edema on two separate Himalayan peaks
Okay,
was
we have so much to break down. I just you glanced over something. Your first hike was Mount Shasta.
Shasta, yes.
How big of an elevation was that for that mountain?
So Mount Shasta sits about a little under 14,000, I believe.
Okay.
So it's not a huge mountain, but it's a great basic mountain to get a base knowledge of mountaineering. And there's a little crevasses here and there. There's a little bit of exposure, not much because it's a intro to mountaineering, but a very beautiful mountain.
What were you doing before the pandemic and you had this idea of, hey, I want to conquer my fears. I want to go climb Mount Everest. What were you doing prior to all this?
So I'm actually a flight attendant. I work on corporate planes, and I was bartending, and I was kind of just living a life of just waking up, going through the motions, doing what I knew, um, and nothing new, no challenges that really put me in a sense of a fight or flight, a sense of real life survival. And I think that I knew that I needed to start tapping into that, because that's where I started to truly grow and see my fullest potential. So I needed to challenge myself. And I think it wasn't really the time, it was more a sense of fear of the unknown, of what's going to happen, risk,
Hmm.
lot of risk that was involved. So I decided to just go for it, because, this is our only life, and why not go for what you fear? Because if you can face all your fears, then there's nothing stopping you. There's a fear of public speaking, which I had immense fear of prior to even Everest, and then doing interviews after. That's tackling that as well. So I think really putting myself in that mindset shifted gears during COVID.
you're inspired. You decide to become a mountain climber. You do Mount Shasta. You're starting to build up towards Mount Everest. And before I interrupted, you were talking about discovering you have some illnesses when it comes to climbing.
Yeah, so there's two major factors that I discovered during the climbing, and it wasn't fear. Fear was actually it was the fear of heights wasn't it was probably at the bottom of the list at this point. Because when you experience real health issues on the mountain, it's obviously you're facing death. So one of the risks was developing pulmonary edema. So, for those that don't know what pulmonary edema is, it's altitude induced. So, your body fills with fluid, your lungs fill with fluid, and essentially you're drowning in your lungs. So, you have these bubbly breaths and you develop a cough. And if you don't descend within 24 hours, it's fatal. So there then involves a risk of if there's no heli rescue due to weather and there's no oxygen, that's a life or death uh, risk and scenario. So I was faced with that two separate times in the Himalayas on two expeditions, which was very humbling.
So
Um,
you have this condition. At any point, then you're thinking about, okay, I'm Mount Everest. I'm going to take that off the list because this could kill you. This condition. You're halfway up the mountain, and you need to get down. Did you ever
right?
think of not going after Everest?
I didn't because I knew that there was always a way. There's always a solution to every problem. And I knew that and I had so many people reach out to me and say, "Hey, you shouldn't do high altitude anymore. I think that you should do more technical peaks. There's great exposure on some of these peaks where you can, still get that high and that, thrill." Everyone had their inputs in my mountaineering experience. And I said, Mount Everest is a dream, and I'm not going to let anyone take that away from me. So I reached out to every high altitude doctor that I could find. And I spoke with this one doctor, Dr. Peter Hackett. He's out of Colorado and he specializes in high altitude medicine. And he basically mentioned what I was going through, mentioned that it was possible to still climb at altitude. There was just a certain formula that I needed to plug in. And so this was 6 months prior to Everest.
Okay.
So I decided to try out that formula on a smaller peak in the Himalayas. So I wasn't initially going to climb Mount Everest last year. I was going to climb another peak, a sister peak named Lobuche, which it sits at 20,000 feet. And every time I developed pulmonary edema, it was at 20,000 feet. So I decided to attempt that, see how my body would react. It would still be the same trek as Everest, but it would be sharing a sister peak. So it wouldn't be the risks if I were to need heli rescue,
Okay.
it wouldn't be fatal,
So
right?
this is a 20,000 elevation mountain. That's going to be your test run before
That
your
was gonna be
plan to
my
go
test.
conquer Everest, which is about what, 29,000 feet, I
Correct.
think. Okay, so
Yes.
20,000 is the test run. You're getting ready to do this. Go on.
So I get ready to do this. I do the whole trek. Doctor recommended that I climatize really slow because that's why I developed edema in the first place is my body's reaction to ascending too quickly. So I reached Everest Base Camp, it shares a base camp with this peak, and I developed a respiratory infection. And I have to descend lower to heal because your body is not able to heal itself at altitude. And Everest Base Camp is about 17,000 feet roughly. So I descended down to the little village lower than Everest. And um, kind of heal here and there. I still have this really bad cough. I still feel, all kinds of ways. And essentially I missed the window to attempt Lobachet. The whole team had already went up, and I was now left with another peak that I didn't, wasn't able to summit or attempt fully. I then had a spark in my mind saying, what if? What if that mountain right over there is possible? And I have about a week and a half to heal my body and go for the highest peak in the world. And I call my team, I call my sponsors, and I call the leader of our expedition group, Nimsdai, and I ask him, "Hey, just curious, I want to see if Everest is possible, like next week." and and my team said, "Look, these are the risks. We know you. You've been climbing with us for 3 years now. We believe in you.
Hmm.
And if you believe that you can do this peak, we will support you. Don't let anyone tell you that it's not possible. Only you know it's possible." So that's when I decided I'm going to go for Everest. And I went for my first rotation about a week and a half later.
There's some stuff I want to dissect here. You said the base camp itself is at 17,000 feet.
Correct.
Mount Charleston is at 11,000 feet. So I'm kind of putting everything in my mind is looking at elevations. You're here in Las Vegas, you know Mount Charleston, that's 11,000 feet. So you have to get from zero to a base camp. So you're at this base camp, and you said you were back at the base camp healing. Are you like hanging out in a tent, or is it a village and there's people up there? 'Cause when you say base camp for 2 weeks trying to rest up, I envision you just like sitting in a tent, like freezing up there. What's base camp like?
Yeah, so base camp is actually sit on a glacier, and it's almost as its own little city. So there's all these expedition groups kind of set up, and our camp is basically it consists of a bunch of different tents, and there's a cooking tent, there's a communal tent. It's actually evolved quite nicely. You have a barista in one tent. It's these large globe tents.
You got a
And
Starbucks at base camp, is what you're telling me.
I'm telling you, it's definitely evolved.
Mhm.
So I walk in the initial moment I walk into base camp, they welcome us with a cake. They bake actual cake up there, which is thoroughly impressive. And then so we're eating cake and we're having a latte, and there's small little couches everywhere, and kind of fake grass inside. So it's actually really really cozy area, and that kind of makes it a little more mentally um comfortable, and it allows you to have a space where you could connect with others and maybe read a book, or do some stretching. So you have space. You're not always outside.
Okay.
It's great. Yeah.
So now you decide to I'm gonna do this. It was the initial plan, but I'm going to now climb Mount Everest. So many questions. We're gonna start throwing stuff out there. But what
Sure.
kind of gear do you have to climb Mount Everest?
Yeah. So the higher the mountain, the more technical the gear, the lighter the gear. So it's a whole different set of equipment. Uh, Starting with your summit suit, which is a full down suit, and it's a onesie. That is probably going to be your most coveted piece because it is freezing up there. And sometimes you wear it at base camp just walking around, keep yourself warm. You have your ice axe, your technical axe. You have obviously your helmet, your harness, and you have these I have my boots right over there. Maybe I should
Yeah,
grab
do you have you
these.
got them? Yeah, please.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you want
walk
me to
over.
grab? Okay,
Absolutely.
I'll
Yeah,
show
let's
you.
see
They're
this stuff
they're
because this is
pretty
just
fun looking. You want
yeah. Grab it, whatever
all
you
right.
can. Yeah, this is I love seeing this kind of stuff. I mean, climbing Mount Everest is not like going on a Red Rock hike for an afternoon. There's a lot of stuff that goes into it. And if you're just popping on the show right now, this is Kayla Perez, and she decided to conquer Mount Everest, and she did, and she's getting the boots, the special boots that she wore when she did her trek to the top.
All right, so these are some Scarpa. They're called the Phantom 8000. These are 8,000-meter boots. So these
Wow.
are triple boots. And so when they open up, there's an under boot right here.
Okay.
So this is the outside and then this is the inside. This comes out
Uh,
and they're pretty good weights, pretty heavy and they're pretty thick.
yeah.
So the crampon, which are these spikes, go on the bottom so that you have traction on the glacier because it's very slippery and you can fall and the ice fall is the most dangerous part of Everest. So these are actually pretty cool. They're heated. So there's a little button here and then it heats the sole of the boot.
How long does that charge last to heat the boots?
Batteries die pretty quickly at in the cold. I would say a good 6 hours,
Yeah.
5 to 6 hours.
How much do boots like that cost?
These are about, I would say 1,500.
Whoa. Okay.
Yeah, yeah, each piece is gonna be, pretty pretty pricey.
Are you bringing a change of clothes, or once that gear's on, this is what you're wearing from top to bottom?
You know, I do bring a change for Summit Push specifically. Um, you don't know what's gonna happen up
Mhm.
there, and you always want at least one change of clothes. I take at least two. The good part is that you can leave it at camp too, and then when you come back from the summit, you have something warm and nice to change into, which is it's heaven when you change into nice clothes. But all you want to do is get down safely. So
What are you eating on the journey up to the top of Mount Everest?
so at base camp's actually really nice because there's cooks, there's a whole cooking tent. So you have everything from fresh fruit to I've seen sushi. I've seen yes.
I wanna go to base camp for vacation next year. It sounds amazing. Starbucks, sushi, a tent, and reading books. It sounds so relaxing.
Listen, it's beautiful once you reach base camp, but once you leave base camp, all of those luxuries start to kind of dissolve.
Yeah.
And you're kind of thrown into this rawness and ruggedness. So once you cross the ice fall, then you are cooking freeze-dried meals, kind of just that camping general nutrition, which, sometimes is not the best. And once you reach the summit, you don't actually have nutrient dense food because it's so heavy to carry. I think I had powdered mushroom soup on my summit push, and I have a really raw, bad story about that. You don't want to know the details, but it was not a good experience.
Oh
My
my
stomach,
gosh, what do you do if you have to go to the bathroom? That's I guess where the
you
mushroom
have
soup
to,
would not sit with me, so what happens then?
no, you have to go to the bathroom and picture this. So you're in a onesie,
Yeah.
one piece summit suit. You're leaving around 11 p.m. You're harnessed up, so you have your one piece, then your harness, and you're on a fixed rope. And so there's no unclipping that rope because it's dangerous. You can fall to your deaths. There's no setting aside and going to the bathroom. There's no going to the bathroom. You are kind of just having to hold it or you're going to have an accident. And it's kind of this mental endurance that you're having to reinforce along with all these external factors.
Mhm.
So not only are you having this crazy internal response that you have to control, you're in the extreme colds, you or can't you it's hard to breathe, you're very weak, you haven't rested in weeks. So you're kind of at your raw's edge and you're not really you're kind of in survival at that point.
But if someone's gotta so if you gotta pee, you're just gonna pee in your suit?
You can, well, not pee in your suit. There's a little flap on the back
Huh?
that you
I envision
unzip.
the old-timey pajamas that have the
Yeah,
buttons. Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
So you unzip but you can't unclip from the line.
Okay.
So if you gotta go number 2, you're in front of people, you're in back of people. It's just not it's not ideal.
It's a process, sure.
I mean, going pee, that's one thing, but, you gotta
Mushroom soup is another thing. Yeah. Oh my
mushroom
gosh.
soup is just not recommended on the summit push of
I would be
Everest.
so mad at the person that packed it. Of all the soups you could pack, you pack mushroom soup.
Mushroom I said, "That's all we have left?"
Seriously.
Like, pasta or sushi?
Anything. A Pop Tart? How
Pop-Tart? Something, yeah.
start to finish? How long does it take to get to the top of Mount Everest and back, time wise?
So it took me a total of 5.5 weeks.
Wow. Okay. It's a long
Yes.
time.
Yes, long time commitment.
You start hiking. You said you're leaving at 11 o'clock. Now, walk us through that journey. Once you kind of leave that base camp and you're like 1-2 days into it, where are you? What are you looking at? What are some of the challenges that are facing you as you're hiking up the mountain?
So once we go, we have to pass the ice fall several times. So the first time is what's called the climatization phase. So you're um, climbing up to Camp 2 to acclimatize so your body could build red blood cells. And once you reach base camp, then you go for your summit push. And your summit push means that you're going straight up to the summit from base camp, which will take at least, it took me about 4, 5 days, 5 days. So initially crossing the ice fall, reach Camp 1, push past Camp 1, reach Camp 2, sleep there. And then from Camp 2, you climb to Camp 3, which is another 10 to 12 hours, sleep there. And then from Camp 3, you push to Camp 4. Now, once you're in that region, that is actually what's called the death zone. And that will, you're basically at an altitude where your body can't survive. So your body's literally dying at that point. So time is of the essence, and you have to get up and down as quickly as possible, just to mitigate the risks of death.
Hmm.
So essentially, what they want you to do is push past Camp 4, rest there for a couple hours, which you've already been climbing for at least 12 hours, push to the summit, and then descend all the way down to Camp 2.
So that
So
that when you get to Camp 4, that couple hours you're resting, and then you're going up top, and then down past 4, past 3, get down to 2 immediately.
correct. I personally, that's what the plan is for most people. For myself, I knew I needed we needed extra support. We needed extra oxygen being brought up. There was a few factors in my personal experience where I knew it was a safety measure that was going to keep me alive. So we waited at least a day in the death zone, which is harder because you're not really resting.
Hmm.
Your body's dying. So your body's becoming weaker and weaker and weaker. I had to wait there a little longer than most. I do have supplemental oxygen, but it doesn't mean that it makes it any better. It just lowers your altitude about 1,500 feet. So it was tough. So at that point, once we summit push at 11 p.m. from Camp 4 to summit took us about 8 hours to reach the summit.
Hmm.
And then once we reach the summit, we have to descend all the way down to Camp 2. That push alone took me 24 hours straight. So, stopping maybe for a little tea, but you're descending in a whiteout
Mm.
in a storm at this point. So there's real no, okay, let's just stop in this whiteout and have some tea. It's
You
really
just
not.
keep going.
It just keep going, and you have no options, because if you don't keep going, you can die. So that's something that you just have to keep pushing, and you realize that you're more capable of what you ever thought you were.
Yeah, that's when you realize the extremes you can push your body to. When you get to the top, and what was that moment like for you? Get to the top of Mount Everest, you're up there. Walk us through it, the feeling you made it to the top. You made it. We know you have to come down. We'll get to that here in a second, but you get to the peak. What was going through your mind at that moment?
Oh man, there was so many emotions once I reached the summit. One was just an immediate feeling of gratitude that I had struggled so much in the mountains and I had endured so much to get to that point. So it was a it was a euphoric feeling. It was a feeling of gratitude. I also knew that I had to descend. So there was a feeling of also exhaustion and a feeling of question because there's stories of, people passing the day before on their descents, and you see things yourself on the summit as well that are happening in real time. And so there's that realistic um moment where you're still in fight or flight even though you have this really, you've just accomplished this huge feat.
Hmm.
So you're kind of just you're absorbing it, but you're still very hyper focused because about 80% of accidents happen on the descent.
Wow.
So that's where you really have to focus because people have this, big accomplishment and they're, celebrating and then they just want to get down, and it just takes one misstep, one mistake to really end that. So
How
you
long do you stand on the summit for? How long were you up there for before you start coming back down?
was up there about 20 minutes.
Hmm.
There was probably about, I would say 30 people up there at that point, in and out. So, you take photos. I actually had beautiful weather on the way to the summit. And then you start to see these clouds roll in and weather changes in an instant. So my Sherpas and I are looking at this weather, we're like, okay, it's time to go.
Yeah, time to get out of here. We gotta
Time to
scram.
go. That was it. We got the photos.
Are you? But I heard stories about that. I mean, it's morbid, but are there bodies that you're seeing on the way up there, or is that just an urban legend?
No, no, absolutely. You are seeing it all. I mean, that's the truth. That's the reality of it is that people, they eh, for whatever reason, whether it be lack of oxygen and they couldn't make it back down, they went self-supported. A lot of people do attempts without supplemental oxygen, and there's high risk of HAPE or high altitude pulmonary edema, which I've had,
Hmm.
or cerebral edema, which I did see. And it is a swelling of the brain where you lose motor function and you hallucinate,
Oh my
and
gosh.
you're not able to make sense of anything. So you're if you don't have any oxygen, you don't have any support, there's no um, guidance on the way down. So if if you cannot get yourself down past, I would say camp 3, then you're staying on the mountain, unfortunately, and you do see that as you walk up other people that have passed, and that sets in. That's very, very real.
Yeah.
This is not this is not something to tread lightly with. It's something that we know the risks, all of us do, going up there, and we are willing to take a risk to follow a dream.
Do you have to have a permit to climb it, or you mentioned the people that maybe inexperienced? Are the people that just go up there and say, "I want to climb," it," and just think they have the right gear and start trekking up, or do you have to? Is there a process to go to register with someone or something to climb the mountain, or anybody can just go and attempt it?
No, so there you actually have to apply for a permit,
Okay.
and it's through the Nepali government. And that's I think they've risen the permits now to about, I think it's maybe 12,000 now per permits. But you definitely have to apply for a permit, and whether you go through an outfitter or you go solo, everyone has to have a permit.
Then what were the challenges then coming down? You talked about 80% of the deaths and accidents happen on the way down. What were some of the challenges that you were facing? You're up there, there's that moment, you got your 15, 20 minutes, all of a sudden the bad weather's starting to roll in, we got to get out. What were some of the challenges and fears you had descending the summit?
Yeah, so immediately we faced a whiteout, which the visibility lowers to probably 10 feet, if that,
Mhm.
5 feet. So you're on a fixed line, but now you can't see. You're on the edge of a mountain going up and down and around. There's a Hillary step. There's technical terrain up there. So you just have to be hyper focused, which you're running on no sleep 3
Mhm.
days, and you kind of start to not hallucinate, but your mind starts to wander. You have to reel it back in. Um, by the time that we reached Camp 4, I immediately thought, and that you see these tents just blowing, and just you're just constantly being hit by snow, and all you want to do is crawl in one of those tents and take a rest, and you can't. So you have to keep going. And I saw teammates, not wanting to go back down, wanting to rest too, and getting on the comms and asking our ops, "Hey, can we just stay one day?" And they're like, "No, it's dead zone. You have to go down."
Yeah.
So my biggest challenge was from camp 3 to camp 2. It was the longest push. So I then had really bad blisters on the bottom of my feet.
Oh my gosh, yeah, I didn't even think of that stuff, how your feet must be so sore.
Oh, my feet were wrecked. I could barely step. Every step was a shooting pain to my brain, and I used my poles as crutches, and I limped my way back to camp 2. I was in pure exhaustion. I was hungry. I was tired. I was all everything that you could imagine at that point. But there's no stopping. You just have to keep going, and it felt like would never end. And and so you made it to camp 2, and you rest maybe 6 hours. Your body won't really rest at that altitude, but then you have to think of, man, I have to keep going down past camp 1, past the glacier, which is the most dangerous part, which is actively melting and switching every single day. And so, you're hopping over crevasses, and the ice fall is just, you hear it crashing down, and I all I could think about was just a warm bed and a shower and my feet. Um and I also have Raynaud's, which is vascular constriction in my extremities, so my hands get cold
Mhm.
really fast and my feet get cold really fast, so I had to be actively conscious that I'm not developing frostbite, because sometimes it'll develop and you won't even feel it.
What were the, you and I first spoke, the ladders you had to crawl, was it crawl across these ladders? Talk about where are the ladders and what are they for during your trek?
Yeah, so the Khumbu ice fall consists of anywhere from, I would say, 10 to 15, 20 ladders sometimes, just depending on the ice fall that year. So they're basically just these regular ladders, strung against across these crevasses that are bottomless, and it's just a way to get over these sections that otherwise you wouldn't be able to. So you're walking across them with your crampons, and some of them have ropes on each side where you can kind of um, have a little stability.
Mhm.
But as you're as the season carries on, these ice fall, these ladders, the glaciers start to melt and shift. And these ice fall doctors is what they're called. They come and they reset these ladders. Well, towards the end of the season, there's not much maintenance on the ice fall. So you're kind of seeing these ladders, half on, half off. There's maybe one rope on this side. This ladder's kind of gone, so you have to hop and jump over a crevasse, and it's full power, full attention in those
It's
sections.
just a ladder that's and you're crawling or walking across this ladder, and underneath it is just emptiness.
Bottomless crevasses. There's no end to
And
them.
there's some ladders that don't have ropes for you to hold on, so you're just walking across this ladder? Is it like
Correct.
a ladder you find at Home Depot?
Yeah. Yeah, just like metal ladders, just I mean, some of them I question.
Right?
It's just they're just, ladders that and they're just, sometimes have fun and you're like, "Well, here we go." And there's not really that's why they call it the most dangerous section of Everest because it's constantly moving and there's no
Mhm.
full stability in that ice fall.
You get back, what's the first meal you had when you got back home? Or back to, I guess, with a camp that might have something besides mushroom soup.
So actually, when I flew back to Kathmandu, I was staying at Marriott property and I ordered room service. I said, okay, this is going to be the best shower of my life.
Yes.
You only take maybe two sponge baths the whole time that you're up on the mountain. They have this little tent and you know, you're just and you're freezing. And so you're
Yeah.
just wiping everything that needs to be cleaned. And it's really not so I was looking forward to the shower and a meal. I think I ordered, so Indian food is amazing out there,
Mhm.
and so I ordered, a bunch of Indian food, and my stomach had shrunk so much, I'd lost so much weight, that my eyes were bigger than my stomach, and you just get really full really fast, so I thought I would eat more, but, they have a great buffet there, and it was just yeah, all the amazing desserts, so I definitely ate well when and I slept well when I
Yeah, I'm
got back.
sure. It's such a deep sleep.
Oh
So,
my gosh. Yeah. I
I
think
mean,
it's
you
the best.
have so much more, to come here because we were talking about setting up this interview and like, oh, this is perfect timing because as we're recording this, you're getting ready to go on another climb. Talk about what you're doing. What Sunday you're heading out?
Correct. So I fly to Alaska, Anchorage, Alaska on Sunday, and I will be attempting Mount McKinley, Mount Denali. And it is, they say, one of the hardest peaks to go for just because of, I mean, many different factors. But some say it's harder than Everest just due to the positioning of it. So
Mhm.
it's at I think uh 63 north latitude, I believe. And so that makes it the weather more volatile, uh
Okay.
colder, closer to the Arctic Circle. So you're basically on Everest, the weather's a little more fixed and stable during the spring. So you have these weather windows in Denali, you kind of just have this gauge on the mountain. Okay, I think we should go this day. The weather says this, but it switches up so quickly. You have a lot more whiteouts, you have higher winds, colder temperatures. So if you actually Google the weather on Mount Everest currently, which Everest season just is finishing up now. Google the weather on Everest and Denali, you'll see the difference is quite significant. So I think summit weather on Everest is about maybe 0 or like 7 below, and Everest is about -63 Fahrenheit on the summit. So you're basically, you know, you're exposed to extreme cold, which, it's almost you can't survive in that weather. So it's a very, I think that's the hardest part. Also, you're carrying a sled, you're pulling a sled with you and carrying 100-liter pack. You have no Sherpa support, you have no guidance, you're kind of on your own. So you're carrying about 150 pounds with you on snowshoes through this weather. You are building your tents, you're cooking your own food, you are essentially doing everything yourself in more extreme conditions.
Wow. How
So,
long? How long is it estimated to take to get to the top of Denali and back?
so it's interesting because you're actually gaining the most in any mountain in the world. So you're gaining, I think wrote it, 18,000 feet is what your elevation gain is. Everest is 13,800.
Okay.
So you can imagine you're gaining so much more, and then you're only doing it in maybe 2 weeks, 2 to 3 weeks versus 2 months. So less time to acclimatize. Even though it's not as high, you are facing extreme factor in that mountain.
We got to wrap it up here in a couple of minutes, but I just think your whole story and this whole journey of yours is fascinating. Where you go back to 5 years ago, this wasn't in your wheelhouse, and all of a sudden you have this vision. I want to do this, and here you are, 5 years later, conquering the biggest mountains in the world. You're an expert in the field. You're sought after to speak about your experiences. How does that make you feel? And what advice would you give to someone who maybe wants to, I don't know, pursue acting, but they never acted before, or they want to become an auto mechanic, they never worked on a car before? You're living proof that you can change your life to whatever you want it to be. You just got to give it the time and dedication. What advice would you have to people out there?
Just believe in yourself. If you have a dream, follow it. Don't let anyone tell you otherwise. You are in charge of your success. Time is of the essence. Don't let anyone dictate that for you. Just go for it. Just start now. You have 35,000 choices you make per day, and all of that attention where your energy goes is going to be the success. So you have to put all your focus in what you want to accomplish in this life. How do you want to show up? Every day is a new opportunity. Everyone has the same amount of time in the day. So if you want to do something, if you want to accomplish a dream, just go for it. Just do it. You'll find a way, and I promise you, you will not regret it.
Kayla, this was awesome. I am so happy that we've become friends over the past year, and I'm so happy for all your success and past accomplishments. You'll have to come back when after your next mountain climb there and let us know how it went.
I will. I definitely will. Thank you so much for allowing me to share my story.
Please, and pack something besides mushroom soup. That's the one takeaway from here. Mushrooms out of all the soups.
I'm cooking now. I'm cooking all kinds of good stuff. So
Okay,
more
perfect.
mushroom
Well,
soup.
thank you so much, Kayla. I appreciate it. This was awesome. Thank you so
Thank
much.
you, JC. I appreciate you.